back to the defeat of Irish General Patrick Sarsfield in 1691, the British had occupied Northern Ireland, and sometimes the entire island itself. The general feelings of discontent in Ireland by the late 1960s had grown into full-fledged violence in the Battle of Bogside. This battle was essentially a huge communal riot in Derry, which is in Northern Ireland, and it resulted in an increase of British troops in Northern Ireland, troops who were, to many, unwelcome in the area. In Northern Ireland, the Battle of Bogside had given insurgent troops traction with Irish nationalists in Northern Ireland who had seen the British troops in the region as an unwelcome occupation force. Within the Irish Republican Army, a divide was emerging. Seeing the traditional IRA as poorly armed and unfit to defend the Catholic residents of Northern Ireland, one of its traditional roles since the 1920s, several key future members of the Provisional Irish Republican Army met in Derry and decided that the current IRA was not fulfilling its traditional roles. In differences of ideology of how to respond to violence, the Provisional Irish Republican Army, or PIRA, was formed. The Provos, as they became known, advocated the use of extreme violence to unite Ireland into one Republic of Ireland, completely removing British rule from the island. The Provos were initially poorly armed, their weapons mostly consisting of World War II weaponry such as Thompson submachine guns and M1 Garands. They also wielded Semtex, a plastic explosive with a high explosive yield, which has become notoriously popular among terrorists due to its ease of concealment. However, in the 1970s, the Provos acquired modern weaponry, including the AK-47 donated by Colonel Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, and Armalite AR-18s given to the Provos by Irish American supporters. On January 30th, 1972, in the Bogside area of Derry, 26 unarmed civil rights protesters were shot by soldiers of the British Army. 13 of them died immediately or very soon afterwards. This shooting became known as Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday increased public support for the PIRA and their insurgency in Northern Ireland, which enabled them to run smoother operations in Northern Ireland. In 1972 and 1975, the PIRA declared 2 ceasefires. In both instances, they believed they had nearly accomplished their goal of forcing the English out. By 1976, the IRA's insurgency had not yet defeated the British, so they began their strategy known as the Long War. This strategy was to create a war of attrition with the British and cause as many deaths in the British Army as possible. This strategy would prove effective, as they also placed a new emphasis on politics through the organization known as Sinn Féin. In 1981, hunger strikes in support of the IRA began, and Bobby Sands died of starvation in prison. Public support in Ireland of the PIRA grew, and the PIRA felt comfortable enough to engage in their own Tet Offensive, named after the Vietnamese Tet Offensive against the Americans in the Vietnam War. It did not prove effective, however, but speeches made by North Irish leaders showed the IRA that compromise was possible if there was a cessation of violence. As the world moved into the 1990s, the IRA relied mainly on homemade mortars to attack the British. As the violence slowly died down in Northern Ireland, the IRA moved more into the realm of politics, and in 1997, the PIRA announced that they had ended all armed struggle against the British. Though there is still occasional violence in Northern Ireland, it is nothing like it was in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. There are two PIRA splinter groups, the Real IRA and the Continuity IRA, but the region is calm for the most part. In 2005, the PIRA officially disbanded. If the goals of the IRA could be summed up in one quote, it would be the quote they used on their resistance poster, the quote by Bobby Sands that says, "There can never be peace in Ireland until the foreign, oppressive British presence is removed, leaving all the Irish people as a unit to control their own affairs and determine their own destinies as a sovereign people, free in mind and body, separate and distinct physically, culturally, and economically."